Donald Trump held a campaign rally in the Midwest yesterday. Nothing new there. He was forced to hold a rally in Wisconsin to make up for calling Milwaukee horrible. Nothing new there either. Of course, Trump thinks Milwaukee is horrible. After all, there are black people in Milwaukee. So did Trump go to Milwaukee to make amends? Don't be ridiculous. He went to Racine. And of course, he made a lot of off-the-wall remarks. Nothing new there. And of course, he told an enormous number of lies. Nothing new there either. So what is new? What's new is that a mainstream media organization finally tried to hold Trump accountable for all the lies he told. Now, trying to hold Trump accountable is precisely like trying to drink water through a fire hose. The question becomes, how on earth do you slow down the torrent coming at you? And when you just go down the list of lies that Trump tells, you encounter the historian's dilemma. Any historian that does a 10-year study of something, like the 60s in America, for example, is going to magnify the significance of any one event. On the other hand, the historian who examines the 20th century is, of necessity, going to have to start to minimize the events into a larger pattern. And this is exactly the issue in trying to hold Trump accountable. Treating every lie as the same allows you to cover all the lies, but obviously some of the lies are far more serious, if not threatening, than the others. This is exactly the problem that CNN faced when they tried fact-checking Trump. And there's one other fairly big problem with fact-checking Trump. When you focus on the lies, of necessity, you have to let go of covering the completely inane and bonkers things he says when he goes off script. And the fact that he is nuts is just as important as the fact that he fundamentally cannot speak without lying. Here's a perfect example. We all saw the video of Trump talking about sharks and boats with really big batteries. And the moral of that story is that the stable genius would choose electrocution over shark attack. And I don't know about you, but I was pretty surprised that Macho Don did not choose to fight off the shark. I guess he's not as macho as MAGA Nation thinks. Well, Trump's advisors clearly told him he went off the rails with the shark thing and has to fix it. So here he is in Wisconsin talking about sharks again.
Now, look at that beautiful lake. A beautiful lake. Beautiful, right? What's better, this or sitting on the Pacific or the Atlantic, which has sharks? Right. You don't have sharks, see? That's a big advantage. I'll take the one without the sharks.
Now, all he was trying to do was pander to convince Midwesterners that he loves the Midwest, which is not true, but in the process, he went on to the subject of sharks. There are just not enough neurons firing with this guy. His mental decline is real. So CNN did its best to hold Trump accountable by fact-checking him and coming up with a list of no less than 30 lies Trump told at his Wisconsin speech. And here, I have to be a little critical of CNN. Yes, they are attempting to hold Trump accountable, but they pay no attention whatsoever to the way in which Trump is performing in homage to the great state of Wisconsin by telling 30 lies. Wisconsin is, after all, the 30th state to join the Union, and Trump's artful deployment of 30 lies to commemorate that is just radically underappreciated by CNN. So let's take a look at CNN's breathtaking list.
Daniel, take it away.
He said there was world peace in 2020. There was very much not. He said he won Wisconsin in 2020. He lost. He said the Democrats rigged the 2020 election. a lie. He said people around President Biden cheat on elections. No. He said people's votes tend to disappear. They simply do not. He said 107,000 people attended his recent rally in New Jersey. That's at least tens of thousands too high. He said he saved Kenosha, Wisconsin in 2020 during rioting when the Democratic governor wouldn't act to intervene. In fact, that governor deployed the National Guard before Trump told him to. Trump said cocaine was found at the White House about a month ago. That was actually about 11 months ago.
Okay, so there's the first 8 lies. And coming out of the gate is the kind of statement that Trump makes to MAGA Nation, that they will not only believe, but repeat. There were no wars in 2020? According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, which, as you know, invented the Stockholm Syndrome, active armed conflicts occurred in at least 39 states in 2020, 5 more than in 2019. You know, when Donald J. Trump was in charge. But Trump is trying to spin this fabulous claim that instead of the chaos agent and a laughingstock among world leaders that he was, instead, he was some sort of stabilizing force. Yes, and how is Jared Kushner's Israel peace plan going these days, Donald? The next group of lies are just the same old blather about election fraud, which we want to ignore because it's just a dead horse. But we all have to keep in mind the constant refrain about election fraud in 2020 is just a prelude to congressional Republicans for taking over and changing the results of the 2024 elections. Lie number 7 is an important one because, again, Trump and Republicans lie constantly about BLM protests in an attempt to paint Democrats as chaotic, when the opposite is true. And lie number 8 is hard not to laugh at, because you know that cocaine was merely Don Jr.'s secret stash. Let's look at the others.
He said it was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cocaine. It was a little bag, maybe generously in the hundreds of dollars worth. He said Biden orchestrated his New York criminal trial. Zero evidence of that. He said Biden was also behind all of his cases, including civil trials. Baseless again. He said Biden wandered off at the G7 and didn't know where he was. No, Biden was briefly chatting with a skydiver who had landed near the group.
Lies 10 and 11 are important lies because, again, they will become grounds for Republicans trying to legitimize the way in which they will weaponize the Justice Department if they ever come to power. And of course, lie 12 is the constant lie we all know about. The attempt to make Biden senile when Trump is obviously mentally unsound. And we're only at 12. Let's see some more.
He said he was indicted more than infamous Al Capone. No, Al Capone had more indictments than him. He said he was in Washington the other day for one of his trials. He was actually there for meetings with congressional Republicans. He said Nancy Pelosi turned down his offer of 10,000 soldiers on January 6th. She never got such an offer and would not have had the power to reject it even if she did. He said the January 6th committee deleted all records. Just did not happen.
So again, hard to take seriously, but we know they are a setup for the misuse of power should Trump get installed as president. And that's where lies 15 and 16 are so dangerous. Trump denied DC Metro Police reinforcements because he was part of the coup to keep him in power. Constantly blaming Nancy Pelosi makes people look behind the curtain and removes him from guilt. Only it doesn't, because he's guilty as hell. And lie 16, that the records have been destroyed, is simply part of a larger narrative to discredit the January 6th committee, which needs to be discredited in Republican circles. Otherwise, Jim Jordan would be in jail. What's next?
He said he's the only president who didn't start a war. Jimmy Carter didn't start any wars. He said he finished the war in Syria, no, and got U.S. soldiers out. He actually left hundreds of troops there. He said Syria and Turkey have been fighting over their border for, quote, 2,000 years. That border, Abby, is less than a century old. He said insane asylums are being emptied by foreign countries to let people come to the U.S. as migrants. His own campaign cannot substantiate.
So the next 3 lies are all about covering over how totally inept Trump was at foreign policy. And you'll notice he went nowhere near Afghanistan, where he, Donald J. Trump, and Trump alone negotiated the release of 5,000 Taliban prisoners, most of them trained military insurgents, who then helped the Taliban topple the Afghanistan government. 5,000. They were in jail for a reason, Donnie boy, and you just proved it. Nice going. Good thing Biden was around to clean up your mess. And of course, number 20, the emptying of insane asylums, picked right up where Trump started in 2016 with his anti-immigration rhetoric. And wow, only 10 lies to go. Come on, Trump, you can do it. Trump, 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 Trump.
This claim. And he also said prisoners are coming in from jails in the Congo over the border. His campaign can't substantiate that either. He said President Obama cannot deport criminals to Latin American countries. Obama, in fact, could. He said Venezuela's crime is down 72% because of emigration to the U.S. Venezuela's violent deaths are actually down 25%, and that's for a variety of reasons. He said 17 or 18 million people have now entered illegally over the border. Experts say that's many millions too high.
Okay, so 21 through 24 is the continuing attack on brown people by Trump. Because if you ain't white, you're from a crap hole country. Right, Donnie boy? Moving on.
He said Biden's plans would quadruple your taxes. Total fiction. He said canceling Keystone XL, the pipeline, cost 48,000 jobs. That is wildly inflated. He said total inflation under President Biden is 40 or 50%. It's actually 19%. He said before he took office, there was a $500 billion trade deficit with China. It has never been that high. And in fact, the record was set under Trump in 2018.
And now we get into the heart of the problem and the core of Trump's campaign. That America is a hellhole. Lies 25 through 28 are lies about the economy, and this is precisely where the media should be having a field day. This is where the double standard really comes into play. If a Democrat were to ever say that total inflation was up at 40%, they would be crucified for not knowing exact figures on the economy. Their competency would be questioned, and at best, they would be lambasted for hyperbole. The sheer incompetence, the act of being willfully obtuse, is so disqualifying for anyone running for president that it should single-handedly bury this campaign. Bracketing off for the moment that total inflation under Biden is lower than most of Europe and the world, and that the cause of worldwide inflation is mostly due to Trump's pal Putin. Obviously, Trump would never have to reckon with those facts, but even so, there should be major headlines. There should be a gaggle of reporters asking how he came up with that figure and then questioning his answers. But no, the media is just let Trump be Trump. Kudos to CNN for including this lie, but as I said before, when you make a list, this is what you sacrifice. And it proves the fire hose strategy works. Okay, the last two.
He said no previous president has taken in even 10 cents in tariff money from China. It is Americans who pay those tariffs, and the U.S. has actually had such tariffs on China since the 1700s. And finally, he said we're in the worst crime wave in modern history. Crime has actually plummeted in 2023 and so far in 2024. Abby?
And it's only Tuesday.
What can you say? The last lie is part of the broader narrative of the hellscape. And it's all calculated to distract from the fact that Trump has no vision for America. Only a quest to keep his butt out of jail and run some more cons. It was very depressing indeed to see an audience in Wisconsin swallowing all those lies and cheering on America's most wanted con man. And so, a final thought on Wisconsin and to Wisconsin. A question to put a pin in Donald Trump's hot air balloon. It's a simple question, really. Would Green Bay Packers legendary coach Vince Lombardi approve of Donald Trump? He certainly would not. Lombardi had a reverence for truth, and if he saw crowds in Wisconsin cheering on Trump's lies, this is what he would say.
What the hell's going on out here?
I'm Anthony Vincent Gallo for Occupy Democrats.